This happened several months ago, and at the time, I had recently lost my car due to a motor vehicle accident. So I walked for 30 minutes to the store, thinking that I'd be able to beat the sunset back, but I was wrong. By the time that I was done picking up my grocery, it was pitch black outside. The thing is that I live in a pretty woodsy area where there are not even many sidewalks, so I really didn't think that it was safe to walk back. I tried getting my brother and cousin to pick me up and drop me off, but they wouldn't have been able to make it for a while, so instead I decided to get a lift. There was a photo of a suspicious-looking, creepy old man popped up as my driver, and I waited at the sidewalk for my ride. And maybe like 10 minutes later, the driver arrived. It was a silver Toyota sedan, and the driver was an old man wearing a cap and large-framed rectangular glasses. Instantly, something just felt off about this guy too. His aura was just wrong. But I tried not to let it bother me too much. After all, my home is literally down the street, I reminded myself. I asked him if I could set my groceries in the trunk of his car, and he nodded. I dropped it in without noticing what was in his trunk of his vehicle because where we were stopped, it was pretty dark with no street lamps. I helped myself into the car and told him that I live back there, pointing in the direction from which the vehicle had arrived, and let him know that he was only a 3-minute drive away from my home. I saw him nod, or so I thought anyway, and as soon as the light switched to green, he made a right. I thought that he was making the right turn to turn the vehicle around, but instead he sort of passed the main road that he was supposed to take to get to my home. I let him know immediately that my home was that way while pointing in the direction, and he acknowledged it but still kept going straight, claiming that there was an issue with his GPS, and he started driving us in the complete opposite direction of my home where the roads were completely empty. I suddenly didn't feel safe. I had a terrible feeling in the pit of my stomach, in fact. In that moment of panic, I immediately reached for my phone to SOS, assuming the worst, but then I stopped myself and told myself to just calm down. Make a U-turn, I tried to tell the driver as calmly as possible. I didn't want him to hear the panic in my voice, but he didn't respond. My request to turn around was just completely ignored, and I just couldn't keep calm any longer. So I finally yelled for him to make a right and turn around, and he reluctantly complied. Along the way back to the road that took me to my home, it felt like the longest 3 minutes of my life. But just when I thought that I would finally be home safe, the driver then suggested an alternate route, even though my home was simply right and then right via the main road and very, very close by. I immediately felt that something was really, really wrong. He slowed down next to a sort of woodsy area, an isolated path along the way, asked if I'd ever been there before and that we could take this route instead. I froze. Again, I went into panic mode, but I forced myself to calm down as not to let him know that I was suspicious of him. I raised my voice once more, telling him that my home was that way, while pointing toward the main road, which wasn't very far. He finally obliged after some reluctancy and started driving back toward the main road again. The entire time on the way to my home, my heart was racing and my palms were sweating. We arrived at my complex maybe 5 minutes later, and I spoke to him very nicely so that he doesn't try something funny that would force him to react in such a manner that would put my life in further danger. I told him that I'd be tipping him well for such a short drive, which would be $10. I quickly hopped out of the car and jolted to the trunk to retrieve my groceries, and as I grabbed my bags, I saw something that I hadn't noticed before, because this time the street lamps surrounding my complex illuminated the trunk of his car. And I froze as I grabbed my groceries, because in the trunk of his vehicle was a rope, a mallet, and a bag filled with something. I was immediately trembling from fear. I ran up to my building so quickly and checked outside my window as soon as I got up to my apartment to make sure that he wasn't still lurking and watching. And thankfully, I never had to hear or see from that old man ever again. If I had to guess, I would say that he was up to something evil and twisted, from which I miraculously escaped because, for whatever reason, he decided to change his mind about the intentions that he had for me that night. To this day, I can only guess as to what his intentions were, but judging by the items that I found in the trunk of his vehicle, it's not something that I would have ever had wished to find out. I live alone in an apartment in Utah. My area is fairly metropolitan, and it's not uncommon to see unhoused people near my building. Since I'm a single woman, 20, I'm usually more cautious about locking doors and setting alarms than my friends with roommates. I have an alarm system and also 2 deadbolt locks on my door. Because my area has lots of break-ins, I'm also sure to always lock everything no matter what. Now, 2 nights ago, I came home late from a night out with friends, but I was sober. I made sure to lock everything and set the alarms like usual. But when I woke up the next morning, I heard somebody in the house. They were wearing shoes and just sort of walking around. One of my friends has the code to my alarm, but none of my friends have a key. I'm the only person that I know with the key to the second deadbolt on my door. Not even my landlord has that. I leaned my head out the door of my bedroom, which is just a few feet from the more open living room or kitchen area where the sound was coming from, and there, standing there, was a man in my kitchen. He was about 6 feet tall and maybe 40 years old. He was wearing a full suit and tie, but seemed really tired or drunk maybe. He was standing by the fridge and eating leftovers out of the Tupperware and just kind of staring. I ducked back into my room and called 911, and for the next 10 minutes, I stood by my bedroom door and listened to this man eat a bunch of food from my fridge. When he was done with something, he would just drop the container to the floor. When the police showed up, both deadbolts were still locked. They knocked on the door and the man in my apartment answered. The police rushed him and yelled that it was okay now. When I came out of the bedroom, they had the man pinned to the floor, and I saw that he had rearranged the furniture in my living room. There were containers all over my floor as well. The man wasn't saying anything, and he never said anything even when the police were asking him questions. After they took him away, the officer told me that the man had business cards in his wallet, and apparently he works at a bank downtown. But the weirdest thing is that my alarm was set, and my deadbolts were locked from the inside, even when he was in my apartment. None of the windows were unlocked, and I'm on the 4th floor, or open either. To this day, I still have no idea how he got into my house. And it makes me wonder, how long had this guy actually been in my house for? So before I get started, to make things a little bit easier, I suppose, I'm just going to label my cats in orders of alphabet, sort of. So, E, that's my old grey cat. T, that's the calico cat that ran away. And B, that's the white kitten with the black tail. Now, normally I probably wouldn't share something like this, but this is the 4th time something strange has happened, and it's left me more than a little creeped out and wanting to vent and maybe get an opinion or two on the matter as well. So my family, which is me, my sister and my mother, moved to a new house about 2 years ago, and the basement downstairs is unfinished, with the laundry room to one side split with a wall, and the rest of the basement is supposed to be a sort of play or gaming TV watching area for my sister and I. The basement has always been a creepy area, but it's a basement, right? No one likes basements, so I never really thought much of it. Until, well, now. So the first event, it was probably like 5 or 6 months since we had moved into the house, and I was downstairs watching something when I heard my name from the laundry room. The catch? My mum was working evenings, and it was Friday, pre-COVID, so my sister was at my friend's house, and I was alone with no one but my 2 cats, E and T, to keep me company. Needless to say, I turned the TV off and I bolted upstairs. The second event, this took place maybe a few months after the first event, only T had just recently escaped from the new house. We had no luck finding her, and I remember being upstairs in the living room when I heard T meowing from downstairs. The problem was that I knew that it wasn't just mistaking E's meowing for T's because E was in my mum's room. I went in to check. E was still in my mum's bed, and when I went back to the living room, the meowing had stopped. I didn't go downstairs to check because it was just really creepy. The third event, this one took place maybe a month ago, I think. We got our new kitten B in November of last year, and she's a rowdy little thing, getting into all the nooks and the crannies of everything. She also annoys E every chance that she has, and one day I was watching them just run around each other when E came flying past me from the basement and into the kitchen. I was heading downstairs to the freezer, I think, when I saw E at the bottom of the stairs. I just sort of stared for a moment before I backpedaled and searched for E, where I knew that I had just seen her rush past me and found her in my room. I rushed down the stairs, and the only one down there was B. I have no idea what happened that day. I don't know if I was just hallucinating or what, but it was creepy. Now, the fourth and the final event happened just recently. I was downstairs again when I heard meowing from the far upper left corner from where I was sitting of the basement. The only problem was that I knew that my cats were in the laundry room playing with each other, and even though I could hear them, I got up to check just in case. I decided that because my mother was home at this time, I had the ability to check out whatever was happening, because this time if something did happen, at the very least I could scream and be heard. But when I did, I found nothing but scratches in the concrete floor leading under this shelf thing that my mum has. Now, I don't know if a cat can scratch into concrete floor, but I don't think they can, so if you can, prove me wrong, but I don't know. Something weird is going on in this house, and I don't know what it is. Anyways, there's lots of bad vibes all around here, and I've been trying to keep away from the basement at night now, and any meowing that comes from the basement is pretty much ignored because I don't know what's going on down there, but it's definitely not my cats. So I've always experienced little creepy things throughout my life, but nothing huge. I moved from California to Western New York to live with my boyfriend, and we moved into our new place. It's a really nice area, so I would say that I lived without huge fear of anything really happening. We work nights, but I'm currently laid off due to COVID. My boyfriend still works though, 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., so I'm awake and alone during these hours with my dog and 2 cats. Now, it all started off as knocks on my back door, always coming from the back door too, that I would sometimes get scared of, but I just passed them off as the wind. But then one day, while I was playing PS4 online while in a party chat, I hear a lady sobbing outside. I tell my friends, and they tell me to not open the door, believing that it could be a human trafficking trick. So I crawl to the window and peek outside, only to find that there's nobody out there. So we joke that my backyard is haunted and all that, but I didn't really think much of it. I eventually even forgot about it. Now, this one stands out to me though, because I almost ran outside. I was on the phone with my family as my boyfriend was leaving to work. He usually lets the dog out before he leaves, and sometimes she doesn't come back in immediately. This is important too, because she has escaped from our yard as my boyfriend leaves, and we have to chase her down the block to catch her. So while I'm on the phone, I clearly hear my boyfriend yell the F-bomb. I immediately think, oh no, the dog has escaped. So I hang up the phone and rush to the door, but I realize that his car is gone. So I hang up the phone and I rush to the door, but I realize that his car is gone, so I just stand there confused and call him. Hey, what happened? Did Ruby get out? No, she's inside. Why did you think that? Well, I thought that I heard you yell outside. Oh, that's weird. No, I'm like a few blocks away right now. I was left extremely confused as I've never experienced that. I keep hearing things since then though, like knocks and bangs, even meowing ones, but I ignore them all because I don't want to go outside. Whoever or whatever it was, it wants me outside, I guess, and obviously I don't want to do that. So at around 3:30 a.m. today, my boyfriend got out early and got home. But as I was doing dishes, I didn't get to hug him with his welcome back hug yet. He went upstairs to get changed and I continued doing my thing, but I then hear him at the back door saying hello. For a moment, I'm thinking, he's outside the door and needs me to unlock it and open it? But I quickly realize that he's upstairs. So I just sort of freeze and immediately call him as I'm scared and confused. He tells me that he didn't say hello and that he's in the bathroom. I slowly walk away from the kitchen to the opposite side of the house, and at this point, I'm shaking pretty hard. I mean, it was definitely his voice and rhythm. Whatever it is, it mimicked his voice perfectly. Nothing else has happened as now the sun is out, but I do worry for tomorrow and every night after that. I guess, luckily, I'm not getting hurt by it or anything like that, but it's just a very scary experience. And it's honestly giving some anxiety now every time that I open that door, too. One of my friends has told me to get my house blessed, although nothing ever really happens in the house, it's only in my backyard. I was also told to put nickels on the windows, or something like that. I don't know if I'm going crazy and imagining all this. I wouldn't believe that it could be that though, because it doesn't happen when I'm thinking about it. It happens at random moments when I'm too busy doing something to be able to imagine it. I'm not on any medications, I don't drink or do any drugs. I have looked online for anything similar, but haven't found anything yet. What do you guys think?